I was mid-rant on a late-night forum thread, tearing apart the most toxic romance novel I'd ever read, when the world dissolved into static. My laptop screen flickered white, my bedroom air turned ice-cold, and a flat, mechanical voice echoed directly inside my brain, leaving no room for argument or hesitation. Host transmigration complete. Permanent plot constraint activated. No speaking up. No explanations. No talking back. Verbal defiance triggers systemic punishment. The voice was empty, robotic, devoid of any human tone, and it repeated the rule 3 times in a row, drilling the restriction into every corner of my consciousness before falling silent entirely. I froze for half a second, processing the impossible situation. I'd just transmigrated into the body of Sarah Marlowe, the most pitiful, spineless female lead in the entire dark romance genre. In the real world, I'd spent hours roasting this book online, criticizing how Sarah endured endless humiliation, family bullying, and her fiancé's blind favoritism without a single word of pushback. Now I was trapped in her body, stuck in the middle of the novel's cruelest opening conflict, bound by a sadistic system rule that stripped me of all verbal defense. I swallowed hard, breathed slow, and mentally replied a single calm word. Got it. The system did not respond. It simply locked its rule in place, leaving me fully mute in every verbal sense. I could laugh, gasp, breathe, and make physical sounds, but any intentional explanatory sentence, any defense, any rebuttal was completely forbidden. Before I could even process the weight of my new prison, the bedroom door at the end of the lavish suite slammed open with a violent crash. Heavy, deliberate footsteps thundered across the marble floor, cutting through the quiet hum of the central air, and I looked up to see David Sterling storming into the room. David Sterling, the novel's cold, arrogant, male lead heir of the Sterling billion-dollar real estate empire. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp, chiseled features and icy gray eyes that carried nothing but unbridled contempt for me in this moment. His tailored designer suit fit his powerful frame perfectly, every inch of him radiating old money privilege and entitled rage. In the original novel, he'd burst into this exact room seconds after Rebecca Hale's staged accident, screaming at Sarah to kneel and apologize for pushing her down the staircase. Sarah had obeyed instantly, trembling and sobbing, begging for forgiveness despite being completely innocent, and that meek submission had locked her into 2 years of endless abuse and degradation. But I was not Sarah. I was Sophie, a modern woman who'd spent her whole life standing up for herself, who'd never bowed to unreasonable arrogance or manipulative injustice. David's cold gaze locked onto mine, his jaw tight with fury, and he opened his mouth to bark his demeaning order. Kneel down and apologize now. You hurt Rebecca, you humiliated her, and you will pay for your reckless cruelty. He never finished his sentence. Before the last word left his mouth, before I could even hesitate, my body moved on pure, unfiltered instinct. I stepped forward sharply, raised my hand high, and snapped it across his cheek with a loud, crisp crack that echoed throughout the entire silent suite. The sound bounced off the tall floor-to-ceiling windows, rattled the crystal chandelier overhead, and froze every faint sound in the room. David's head whipped violently to the side from the force of the slap, his perfect, arrogant composure shattered in an instant. The red print of my palm bloomed bright and vivid across his pale cheek, stark against his flesh. For a full 3 seconds, complete and utter silence reigned. He stood frozen, stunned beyond belief, his gray eyes wide with pure shock, unable to process that the meek, obedient fiancé who'd always bowed to his every whim had just struck him a face. I stood my ground steadily, my shoulders squared, my gaze cold and unyielding. The system had banned me from speaking, from explaining, from being back, but it had never said a single word about staying still, about tolerating injustice, about holding back. Actions spoke infinitely louder than useless words anyway, and I had zero intention of repeating Sarah's tragic fate. I was not here to be a victim of the novel's toxic plot. I was to rewrite it. A sharp, urgent warning blared inside my head instantly, the system's mechanical tone sharp and alert. Rule violation detected. Physical defiance registered. Plot deviation rate rising. Warning, unscripted resistance will trigger escalating plot penalties. My heartbeat spiked, but I did not flinch. Penalties or not, I would never kneel to this arrogant, blind man or his... Before David could recover from his shock, soft, deliberate footsteps sounded from the hall to the door. I turned my head slightly, and my eyes locked onto Rebecca Hale, the novel's scheming female rival, standing in the doorway with her entire performance staged. She was dressed in a delicate white sundress, her hair messy as if she'd fallen violently, her eyes glistening with big, fake tears, her lower lip tremblably. A faint, almost invisible bruise stained her knee, a deliberate, minor injury she'd manufactured her lie. She leaned weakly against the doorframe, her voice small and fragile, dripping with manufactured sorrow. "David, are you okay?" I heard a noise. "Did Sarah hurt you too?" Her gaze drifted to the red mark on David's cheek, and her eyes wide in feigned horror, her hands flying to cover her mouth. In that moment, she didn't just witness my defiance. She seized the perfect opportunity to twist my first act of resistance into an inevitable crime. The plot that I'd tried to break had just snapped back to trap me harder than ever. David's shock melted away in an instant, replaced by a burning, unbridled rage I'd never seen in any book description. He slowly turned his head back to face me, his gray eyes darkening to a stormy, icy black, every ounce of his privileged arrogance curdling into pure fury. The red palm print on his cheek throbbed visibly, a humiliating mark he would never tolerate from anyone, least of all his supposedly docile fiancée. "You dare hit me?" His voice was low, dangerous and lethal, every word laced with disbelief and simmering violence. He took a step forward, his towering frame closing the distance between us, his imposing presence pressing down hard enough to make anyone else cower. But I stood completely still, my back straight, my stare unwavering. I could not speak to defend myself. The system's rule clamped tight over my vocal cords, blocking every possible explanation. All I could do was hold my ground and let my unyielding silence speak for itself. Rebecca glided into the room slowly, her steps shaky and unsteady, perfectly playing the role of a fragile, injured victim. She limped slightly, exaggerating the tiny bruise on her knee, and stopped directly beside David, reaching out to gently touch his arm in a comforting, possessive gesture. Her teary eyes locked onto mine, filled with fake hurt and quiet accusation, and she spoke softly, ensuring every word painted me as a violent, ungrateful monster. "I know you've always disliked me, Sarah. I've tried so hard to be kind to you, to get along with you for David's sake. But pushing me down the stairs and hurting me is unforgivable. And now you're resorting to violence against David too?" She sniffled quietly, wiping fake tears from her cheeks, her body trembling like she was terrified of me. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted to talk to you peacefully. I never thought you'd be this cruel." It was the exact same lie she'd told in the original novel, polished and perfected to manipulate every onlooker. In reality, Rebecca had deliberately tripped herself on the staircase earlier that afternoon, creating a tiny bruise for show, then immediately ran to find David, wailing and screaming that I'd shoved her with malicious intent. She'd spent years practicing this exact manipulation, weaponizing her fragility to turn David against Sarah, and now she was using it again. David's jaw tightened her, his gaze cutting through me like shards of ice. He didn't need more proof. He had Rebecca's tears, her stage injury, and now my unforgivable slap to fuel his rage. In his eyes, I was nothing but a violent, jealous fiancé who attacked innocent people and lashed out when confronted with my own mistakes. "You have lost every shred of my patience," he bit out. "I tolerated your jealousy. I overlooked your petty attitude, but physical violence is By this point, the noise had drawn the attention of the entire mansion. Maids, security guards, and household managers gathered quietly in the hallway, peering into the room with shocked, judgmental eyes. None of them had ever seen the obedient Sarah Marlowe raise a hand to anyone, let alone slap the young master of the stir. Whispers rippled through the crowd, quiet and dictatorial. Every single person already siding with Rebecca's perfect victim. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell everyone that Rebecca had faked the fall, that I'd never touched her, that I'd only slapped David because he'd rushed in to condemn me without a sin. But the system's restriction was absolute. My throat felt sealed shut, every possible explanation locked away. I could only stand in silence, watching as Rebecca's lies spread like wildfire, painting me as the villain. Rebecca leaned her head weakly on his shoulder, her voice small and trembling for the audience's benefit. "Don't be too hard on her, David. Maybe she's just stressed. I don't want any conflict. I just wish she'd accept." Her passive-aggressive words dug deeper into the narrative, framing me as a bitter, jealous woman who attacked others. David wrapped a protective arm around her shoulders, shielding her from me, his gaze filled with nothing but disgust for my silent form. You are far too kind. She does see. He turned to the head housekeeper standing in the doorway, his tone sharp and authoritative. Lock Sarah in the west guest wing. No visitors, no phone access, no privileges. She will stay there until she learns to control her violent temper and apologize. Done. The housekeeper nodded immediately, her expression stern and disapproving. 2 uniformed security guards stepped forward instantly, positioning themselves on either side of me away. I did not resist physically. I walked forward slowly, my head held high, refusing to show any weakness or fear. As I passed Rebecca, she lifted her head from David's shoulder for a split second, shooting me a subtle, triumphant smirk only I could see. She knew I couldn't speak, couldn't expose her, couldn't fight back with words. She'd won the effortlessly. As I was led down the long marble hallway toward the isolated west wing, the system's cold voice head again. Plot penalty activated. Social reputation collapse. Host public villain status confirmed. Isolation punishment unlocked. Further physical defiance will trigger hearts. I glanced out the tall hallway windows at the perfectly manicured Sterling Mansion gardens. The sun setting low over the gated estate, painting the sky in cold shades of orange and gray. I'd broken the novel's obedient script in my first 10 minutes in this world, and the system and the plot were already fighting back into place. But as the heavy guest wing door clicked shut and locked behind me, trapping me in complete isolation, smiled faintly. Silence was not weakness. It was just a new kind of weapon, and already learning how to wield it. The west guest wing of the Sterling Mansion was intentionally isolated, far from the main house's living quarters, quiet and empty, and designed for one purpose: punishment. The suite was luxurious by normal standards. Soft silk sheets, modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a private bathroom, but it was a gilded cage. Thick, soundproof walls blocked all outside noise. No staff passed by the hallway, and the only window faced a blank stone wall instead of the mansion gardens. I was completely cut off from the world, left alone with nothing but my thoughts and the system's cruel silence rule. For the first hour, I sat perfectly still on the edge of the bed, testing the boundaries of my restriction carefully. I tried muttering a quiet explanation to myself internally, and the system did nothing. I tried mouthing words without making sound, and no warning triggered. I tried typing a sentence on the locked room's spare tablet, and the system remained completely inactive. Slowly, methodically, I began to piece together the critical loophole that would change everything. The system's rule was extremely specific. No speaking up. No explanations. No talking back. It only restricted verbal spoken communication. It did not ban written words. It did not ban typed messages. It did not ban body language, recorded evidence, or silent actions. The system had trapped my voice, but it had not trapped my mind, my hands, or my ability to prove the truth through every other possible channel. A sharp, cold excitement stirred in my chest. Sarah had suffered for years because she'd only ever tried to defend herself with words, breaking the system's rule repeatedly and triggering endless penalties that left her weaker and more vulnerable. But I would not make that mistake. I would fight silently. I would prove everything without uttering a single forbidden word. I stood up and began searching the guest suite thoroughly. I checked every drawer, every shelf, every hidden corner of the room. The room was stripped of most personal items, but I found a locked personal tablet assigned to guest residents, a stack of blank notepads and black ink pens, and a small portable Bluetooth voice recorder tucked in the back of a desk drawer, likely left by previous guests and forgotten by. I tested the tablet. It was locked with a guest passcode, but after a few minutes of trial and error, I unlocked it using the default mansion guest code. The device had limited access, no social media, no external calling, but it could access internal mansion security logs, local file storage, and text messaging to approved mansion staff. It was more than enough for me to start building. I immediately pulled up the security camera timeline for the staircase where Rebecca had staged. The mansion's internal cameras covered every hallway and stairwell, high definition and time-stamped. I scrolled back to the exact time of the incident, my heart racing as I pulled up the footage. The video was clear, unedited, and Rebecca had walked up the staircase alone, glanced around to confirm no staff were nearby, then deliberately tripped her own foot, falling gently to the steps and creating only a minor scrape on her knee. She'd laid there for 10 full seconds, adjusting her hair and her dress to look disheveled, before starting to sob loudly and call for help. I had never once stepped foot near that staircase that afternoon. I had zero involvement in her accident. I saved the video file directly to the tablet's local storage, backing it up 3 separate times to ensure it could not be deleted or erased. This was my first solid piece of evidence, proof that Rebecca's entire narrative was a fabric. While I was saving the footage, I heard faint footsteps approaching the guest wing hallway. Slow, deliberate. I quickly closed the security log and set the tablet down, sitting back on the bed in a calm, passive posture. The door unlocked a moment later, and Rebecca stepped inside alone, closing the door softly. She wore the same delicate sundress, her fake tear stains still visible on her cheeks, her expression soft and pathetic, but her eyes glinted with cold, calculating triumph. She walked slowly toward me, stopping a few feet in front of the bed, her voice gentle and patronizing. "I feel bad for you, Sarah. You're so beautiful, so privileged to be engaged to David, but you're so bitter and insecure that you have to hurt people who care about him. Why do you keep fighting me? Why don't you just give up?" She leaned in slightly, her tone dropping to a quiet, threatening whisper here. "You can't win. David believes every word I say. The whole mansion believes me. You can't speak, can't explain, can't defend yourself. You're trapped here forever, you to be." I stared at her calmly. No anger, no fear, just quiet observation. She thought my silence was helplessness. She thought my inability to speak meant I was completely powerless. She had no idea I already held the proof of her lie. No idea I'd found the fatal loophole. Rebecca smiled softly, satisfied with my unresponsive silence, and turned to leave, confident she'd broken my spirit completely. The second she closed the door, I picked up the pen and notepad and began writing down every detail of her manipulation, every word of her threat, every timestamp of her staged fall. I wrote fast and precise, building a written record that could never be dismissed or lies. The system's warning blared suddenly than before. Loophole exploitation detected. Rule restriction integrity compromised. Secondary penalty activated. Increased plot and rival character. Rival hostility level elevated. My fingers paused over the paper. The system wasn't just pushing my actions anymore. It was actively strengthening Rebecca to counter my progress. The game was getting harder, the stakes higher, but I didn't stop writing. If the system wanted to fight dirty, I would fight smarter. I had evidence. I had loopholes. And I was no longer the helpless heroine trapped by the plot. After securing the video footage and written records, I knew I needed a witness to back up my evidence. Video proof was powerful, but a living staff witness would make my case unshakable in front of David and the Sterling family. I spent the next day observing the mansion staff's routines through the guest wing window and the occasional staff check-in, analyzing every person's behavior, loyalty, and personality. Most of the staff were long-term Sterling employees, loyal to the family and conditioned to side with David and Rebecca's public narrative. They avoided eye contact with me during routine checks, spoke to me in cold, formal tones, and clearly viewed me as a violent, ungrateful troublemaker. But one young part-time maid stood out from the rest, a quiet 19-year-old girl named Lila, who'd only started working at the mansion 2 months prior. Lila was new, unbound by years of family loyalty and mansion gossip culture. She never whispered about me to other staff members, never shot me judgmental looks, and once accidentally left a small pack of chocolate cookies on my nightstand during her morning cleaning shift, a tiny act of kindness no one else dared to offer. More importantly, I'd noticed her cleaning the third-floor hallway near the staircase at the exact time Rebecca staged her fall. She had seen everything. I believed Lila was my safe ally, my chance to gain human verification of my video evidence. I waited until her evening cleaning shift, when she entered my suite alone to tidy the room, and I acted fast. I picked up my written notes and the unlocked tablet with the security footage, holding them out to her silently, gesturing for her to read and watch carefully. Lila froze for a second, glancing nervously toward the locked door to ensure no one was nearby, then leaned in to read my handwritten notes and watch the short security clip. Her eyes widened slowly as she processed the footage, her mouth falling open in quiet shock. She lifted her head to look at me, her expression conflicted and guilty, clearly realizing the entire mansion had judged me unfairly. I pointed to the video, then to her, then mouthed the word truth without making a sound, begging her silently to stand with me. I truly believed she would me. In my desperation to break free of the system's trap, I misjudged her fear for security and her fragile position as new, low-wage staff. Lila nodded quickly, pretending to agree with me, then finished tidying the room and left the suite quietly. I felt a surge of hope for the first time since transmigrating. I thought I'd secured my witness, that my case was almost complete, that I could finally expose Rebecca's lies and 30 minutes later, the door burst open again, and Rebecca walked in, her expression cold and triumphant, no longer wearing her fragile victim mask. She stood in the center of the room, her arms crossed over her chest, a sharp, cruel smile. Behind her stood Lila, her head bowed in shame, her hands trembling. My heart dropped. I'd been betrayed. Lila had run straight to Rebecca the second she left my room, terrified of losing her job, terrified of crossing the powerful Hale family and the... She'd sacrificed my truth to protect her security. You think a naive new maid will save you? Rebecca laughed softly, the sound mocking. You think anyone in this mansion will choose yours over mine? Lila told me everything, your notes, your video, your little silent plan expose me. She stepped forward, reaching for the tablet on the desk, and I lunged forward instantly to grab it first, clutching the device tight to my chest. I refused to let her destroy my evidence. Rebecca's smile faded, her eyes turned angry. Cling to that video all you want. No one will believe you. David thinks you're violent and delusional. The staff thinks you're dangerous. Even if you own the footage, I'll just say you edited it, that you manipulated the security name. Leaned in close, her voice low and venomous. You broke the rules, you defied David, you tried to ruin my reputation. Now price. Without another word, she turned and stormed out of the room. An hour later, the system's penalty blared loud and urgent inside my head. Allied witness betrayal confirmed. Penalty escalated. Evidence credibly under public doubt. Rival media deviation. Minutes after the warning hit, I saw the first gossip posts pop up on the exclusive high society social media circle Atlanta's elite. Anonymous mansion insider posts claimed Sarah Marlowe's mentally unstable, violent and obsessed with David Sterling, that she fabricated fake evidence to frame innocent people, that her silence was not innocence but calculated manipulation. Snippets of my written notes, twisted and taken out of context, were leaked online rumors. By nightfall, my reputation in the entire elite social circle was completely destroyed. Everyone believed I was a delusional, violent liar. I sat alone in the silent guest suite, staring at my saved video evidence, my hope crumbling into cold, bitter realization. I'd misjudged my only potential ally, handed Rebecca exactly what she needed to destroy my credibility, and pushed my situation to catastrophic. The chapter ended with me completely isolated, outmaneuvered, and facing a public narrative that refused to believe my truth. The next 48 hours were the darkest and loneliest of my time in this novel world. The mansion staff avoided me entirely, skipping routine cleaning checks and meal deliveries to leave me in total isolation. High society gossip spread like wildfire across Atlanta's elite circles, every social media thread bashing my character, mocking my supposed mental instability, and praising Rebecca's grace and kindness for tolerating my cruelty. David never visited, never sent a message, never asked a single question about the leaked evidence or the conflicting rumors. I refused to sink into despair like the original Sarah would have. Instead of wallowing in loneliness, I doubled down on my evidence collection. I organized every written note, every timestamp, every video backup into a secure folder on the tablet, creating a chronological timeline of every one of Rebecca's manipulative acts. I recalled every scene from the original novel, listing every past staged injury, every fake cry, every lie she'd told to turn David against Sarah over the years. I knew Rebecca's pattern now. She never made big, violent mistakes. She specialized in small, subtle, perfectly staged lies that were nearly impossible to disprove without concrete proof. She thrived on David's blind favoritism and the world's willingness to believe fragile, pretty women over silent, accused ones. But no pattern was perfect, and no liar could keep up their act forever. On the third day of my confinement, a sudden power maintenance check swept through the mansion, temporarily disabling the main security server's automatic log encryption. It was a rare, unplanned system glitch, a stroke of luck I'd never have gotten if the plot was running perfectly on script. During the 10-minute window of unencrypted server access, I was able to pull up hidden backup camera footage from the staircase hallway. Angle footage the main public feed did not display. This secondary camera captured far more detail than the original clip. It clearly showed Rebecca glancing around for witnesses, deliberately adjusting her fall, and wiping fake tears before calling for help. Most importantly, It captured her speaking to herself quietly after staging the accident, muttering a sentence that destroyed her entire victim act. Finally, now Sarah will take all the blame. My breath caught in my throat as I saved the new footage. This was not just proof of a staged fall. This was direct audio-visual proof of premeditated manipulation, undeniable and unarguable. I backed it up 4 separate times, saving it to the tablet, a hidden cloud drive, and 2 offline file folders to ensure Rebecca could never delete or destroy. That same evening, David finally visited the guest wing for the first time since locking me. He entered the suite alone. No security, no Rebecca. His expression tired and conflicted, the faint red scar of my slap still barely visible on his. He stood across the room from me, his gray eyes studying my calm, unyielding silence, no longer filled with pure rage for the rumors online are messy, he said, his voice lower and less harsh than before. Staff is split. Some say you're violent. Some say something is off about Rebecca. He paused, staring at me intently. You've not cried, not begged, not apologized for 3 days. You're nothing like this. In the original novel, Sarah would have broken down sobbing the second walked in, begging for forgiveness and confirming his belief in her guilt. But I just stared back at him steadily, holding his gaze without fear or remorse. I walked slowly to the desk, picked the tablet, and held it out to him silently, gesturing for him to watch the new secondary. David hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and the tablet. He stood in the center of the room, watching the short clip in comments. His face shifted slowly as he watched Rebecca's deliberate actions, as he heard her quiet, premeditated words. The arrogant anger faded from his features, replaced by pure shock, then dawning disbelief. He replayed the video 3 times in a row, his jaw tightening harder with every loop. For the first time in his life, his blind, unwavering trust in Rebecca cried open. He realized he'd condemned an innocent person, locked his fiancée away, and destroyed her reputation based entirely on a beautiful woman's fake tears and sighs. When he finally lifted his head to look at me, his eyes were cold. They were conflicted, guilty, uncertain. I didn't know, hoarsely. The system's urgent warning blared immediately inside my head, panicked and sharp. Major plot deviation detected. Male lead bias corruption in progress. Unplanned doubt established. Severe plot penalty imminent. Rival crisis escalation activated. I knew instantly what the warning meant. Rebecca would not let her perfect narrative crumble. Brutal fight. The small crack in David's blind trust was major victory. But it had just triggered the most dangerous clash yet. David's moment of doubt did not last long enough to bring me freedom. The second he finished watching the footage and processing his guilt, Rebecca appeared at the guest wing door, as if she'd been waiting just outside the hallway the entire time. She'd sensed the shift in David's loyalty, felt the crack in her perfect control, and rushed to salvage her narrative before it collapsed completely. She entered the room with red, puffy eyes, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks, her body trembling with genuine panic mixed with manufactured sorrow. She ran straight to David's side, grabbing his arm tightly, her voice breaking with desperate emotion. David, don't believe this. She edited that footage. She's been planning this for days, trying to frame me to clear her own name. She turned her tearful gaze to him, pleading frantically, weaponizing every ounce of their long history and his lingering soft spot for her. You know how jealous she is of me. You know how badly she wants to keep you trapped in this engagement. She would fake any evidence, manipulate any video, just to make me look bad. Please don't fall for her lies. David's newly formed doubt wavered instantly. His guilt faded, replaced by familiar hesitation and conflict. He stared down at Rebecca's tearful face, then back at the tablet footage in his hand, clearly torn between visual proof and the years of loyalty he'd built for her. The footage looks unedited, he said quietly, uncertain. It's deep fake. Rebecca cried immediately, grabbing the tablet and scrolling rapidly through the file properties, pointing to minor timestamp glitches she'd manufactured moments before entering the room. Look, the file has altered metadata. She used professional editing software to fake this entire clip. She's desperate, Dave. She's willing to do anything to save her. I watched in cold silence as Rebecca spun her new lie flawlessly. She'd anticipated my evidence, prepared a counter-narrative, and weaponized modern digital editing skepticism to discredit undeniable proof. In the elite social world, deepfake scandals were common, and her explanation sounded far more plausible to David Then the idea that his beloved Rebecca was a chronic manipulator. David's conflicted expression hardened. He handed the tablet back to me, his gaze cold and disappointed. I need verified, unaltered security team confirmation. Until then, this evidence is in it. He turned to Rebecca, his tone softening with reluctant comfort. I'm sorry I doubted you. I shouldn't have listened to manipulated. Relief flashed across Rebecca's face, quick and hidden, before she resumed her crying act. She'd successfully sealed the crack in her perfect reputation and pushed me back to square one. Worse than square one. She'd turned my only solid proof against me, framing me as a manipulative liar who faked evidence to ruin innocence. Within hours, Rebecca launched her full-scale retaliation. She filed an official verbal complaint with the Sterling family matriarch, claiming I was suffering from severe emotional instability and dangerous violent tendencies. She convinced multiple staff members to testify against me with fabricated stories of past aggression. She leaked the edited video accusation to elite social media, turning public opinion fully against me. The family matriarch issued an official. My confinement was extended indefinitely. All my remaining mansion privileges were revoked. I was banned from contacting any external staff or family members. David was ordered to cut all personal interaction with me until my mental state was professionally evaluated. One by one, every possible external support. The staff feared crossing the family. David refused to see me or hear my case. The public believed every lie spread about me. I had no allies, no audience, no way to communicate my truth to anyone in power. I was completely, utterly. That night, trapped in the silent guest suite with no one to turn to, I hit my absolute bottom. I sat on the floor of the closet, digging through old forgotten storage boxes, and stumbled upon a stack of worn, hidden journals tucked beneath old blankets. The personal diaries of the original Sarah Marlowe, hidden away for years, never found by anyone in line. I flipped open the top journal, my heart aching as I read Sarah's quiet, desperate words. Page after page detailed years of Rebecca's repeated staged accidents, David's endless black accusations, the slow, torturous erosion of her self-worth, her quiet hopelessness, and her desperate, unspoken desire to break free from this toxic engagement forever. Sarah had known the truth all along. She'd seen every manipulation, every lie, every scheme. But she'd been too scared, too trapped, too powerless to fight back. As I closed the final journal page, a sharp, burning resolve ignited in my chest. I was not here to repeat Sarah's fate. I was not here to crumble in loneliness and defeat. I would use Sarah's hidden records, her unspoken truth, her buried pain to fight back. I would no longer fight for David's belief or public approval. I would fight for freedom, for myself, and for the trapped, helpless girl never gotten to be. After finding Sarah's hidden journals, I abandoned all hope of winning over David or the public. I stopped chasing validation, stopped trying to prove myself to people who refused to see the truth, and focused entirely on building a silent, unbreakable case that would destroy Rebecca's perfect facade permanently. Rock bottom had stripped me of all weakness and left only cold, calculated strategy. Sarah's journals were a goldmine of hidden evidence. Over 3 years of entries detailed dozens of unreported manipulations, staged falls, fake panic attacks, fabricated threats, whispered lies, and calculated social sabotage that Rebecca had used to isolate Sarah and turn the entire elite circle against her. Every entry was dated, specific, and detailed, recording times, locations, witnesses, and exact dialogue. No one had ever known Rebecca's pattern of abuse stretched back years. I spent 2 full days cross-referencing Sarah's journal entries with mansion security logs, old social event photos, staff shift records, and archived text message threads from the mansion's internal server. I matched every recorded incident with secondary proof, verifying every lie Rebecca had ever told. I compiled everything into a single, organized, time-stamped folder: video evidence, written witness records, journal confessions, server logs, and date-stamped social media archive. I built my case methodically, eliminating every possible counter-argument Rebecca could use. I removed all footage that could be labeled edited, keeping only raw, unaltered server backups. I cross-verified every journal entry with 2 or more independent records. I created a chronological timeline spanning 3 years, proving Rebecca's manipulation was not a single isolated incident, but a consistent, deliberate pattern of sabotage and deception. While I built my case silently and confined, Rebecca grew overconfident in her victory, believing me completely defeated and powerless. She accelerated her endgame plan, securing an official public engagement announcement with David at the upcoming Sterling Family Charity Gala, the most high-profile elite event of the season. If she locked down the public engagement before I could expose her, her social position would be unshaken. Rebecca began visiting my suite occasionally, taunting me with her progress, smug and triumphant. She'd stand in the doorway, holding gala invitation proofs, and gloat about how she'd finally replace me as David's official fiancé. How everyone would celebrate their perfect love story. How I'd be left with nothing but public humiliation and ruin. I never did. I never showed anger, fear, or frustration. I simply stared at her silently, letting her arrogance grow unchecked. I knew the more overconfident he became, the more careless she, and carelessness was the crack I needed to break her. On the 4th day of my evidence compilation, I caught Rebecca's critic. During one of her taunting visits, she accidentally left her personal work phone on my desk when she rushed out to answer a family call. The phone was unlocked, and I immediately accessed her hidden message archive with her closest. The private texts were damning. Rebecca openly admitted to staging the staircase fall, to fabricating evidence against me, to manipulating David's emotions for years, to planning to steal the Sterling engagement and fortune. She laughed about how easy it was to fool David's blind loyalty, how simple it was to frame the quiet Sarah. I screenshot every single message, saved them to every back drive I had, and left the phone exactly where she'd abandoned it, erasing all traces of my access. Rebecca left completely unaware that she'd just handed me the final, fatal piece of evidence that would destroy her life. The system blared a low, warning alert inside my head. Rival core flaw exploited. Host counter evidence complete. Final plot confrontation approaching. Gala event designated as decisive. I closed my evidence folder calmly, staring out the guest wing window at the distant gala venue preparation lights glowing on the mansion lawns. The battle was no longer whether I could clear my name. The battle was whether I could finally break the toxic novel plot entirely. I was ready. In the week leading up to the Sterling Charity Gala, the power dynamic between Rebecca and me reversed completely, quiet and invisible to everyone but us. Rebecca remained outwardly confident, busy preparing for her official engagement reveal, shopping for designer gowns, scheduling media interviews, and accepting endless congratulations from elite social connections. Everyone believed she was seconds away from securing her perfect future with David Sterling, but behind her perfect public facade, Rebecca grew increasingly anxious and paranoid. She could feel my silent, unyielding presence lingering over her. She'd expected me to break down, to beg for mercy, to lash out violently and confirm my villain status. Instead, I was completely calm, completely silent, completely unresponsive to her taunts. My lack of reaction terrified her far more than any outburst ever could. She began making careless mistakes, growing desperate to force a reaction from me. She sent staff to provoke me with fake insults and lies. She spread new rumors that I was planning to sabotage the gala. She pressured David to permanently terminate our engagement and banish me from the mansion entirely. Every desperate move she made only created more evidence of her obsession and malice. I documented every single one of her desperate actions, adding them to my ever-growing case file. I no longer hid in fear. I lay in wait, letting her chase me, letting her exhaust herself with pointless attacks, letting her dig her own grave deeper with every reckless choice. Midweek, David came to me again, this time without anger or doubt, only quiet confusion and lingering guilt. He'd noticed Rebecca's unusual desperation, her uncharacteristic instability, her endless fixation on destroying me even after I was fully confined and powerless. Her behavior clashed sharply with the gentle, forgiving persona she'd always shown. "Rebecca is not acting like herself," he said quietly, standing in the center of my suite. "She's obsessed with punishing you. She won't let this go, even though you're locked away and no threat." He stared at me intently, searching my silent face for answers. What is she hiding? I did not answer verbally. Instead, I opened my tablet and showed him the full, compiled case file, 3 years of journal entries, verified security footage, dated witness records, and finally, the damning private text messages between Rebecca and her best. David read and watched every piece of evidence slowly, his face draining of all color with every passing minute. The deeper he delved into the file, the more horrified and ashamed he was. For the first time, he saw the full, unbroken pattern of Rebecca's manipulation, the years of lies he'd blindly believed, the endless suffering he'd inflicted on the innocent. By the time he finished reviewing everything, his hands were shaky. He finally understood that I was not violent, not jealous, not unstable. I was a silent survivor who'd endured years of unjust punishment for crimes I knew. Rebecca was the true villain. "I've made a terrible mistake," he whispered hoarsely, his voice filled with raw, unfiltered guilt. "I've hurt you for years. I've let her destroy you over and over again." His full shift in loyalty triggered a massive system glitch. The mechanical voice inside my head stuttered sharply, glitching in broken fragments. Major plot collapse. Male lead loyalty reset. Original romantic route invalid. Plot framework destabilizing. The novel's core romantic plot, David falling in love with Rebecca and abandoning Sarah, was in. The hunter, Rebecca, had become the hunted. The powerless villain, me, had become the story's true one. All remaining power in the conflict shifted firmly. David lifted his head, his gaze determined. "The gala tomorrow night will be the end of this. I will expose her lies publicly, clear her name completely, and..." I stared at him silently, no longer hopeful, no longer desperate for his redemption. I simply nodded. I did not need him to save me. I only needed the gala stage to finally free myself from the novel's toxic plot forever. The night of the Sterling Charity Gala arrived with glittering, deceptive perfection. The mansion lawns were transformed into a luxury open-air ballroom, lined with crystal chandeliers, white rose arrangements, and golden string lights. Atlanta's entire elite social circle filled the venue. Billionaires, socialites, politicians, and celebrities, all dressed in designer formal wear, ready to celebrate the Sterling family's annual charity event and the rumored official engagement announcement between David Sterling and Rebecca. Hail. Rebecca arrived at the gala as the undisputed star of the night, wearing a stunning ivory silk gown, her hair styled in elegant waves, her makeup flawless. She smiled graciously for cameras, accepted endless compliments, and clung to David's arm possessively, playing the role of the perfect, sweet, loving future Mrs. Sterling. Every guest whispered about their beautiful, destined love story, pitying the unstable, violent Sarah Marlowe who'd tried and failed to come between them. No one knew I was present. David had personally arranged for me to attend the gala quietly, hidden in a private VIP viewing balcony overlooking the main ballroom, free from confinement for the first time in weeks. I wore a simple, elegant black gown, my hair pulled back neatly, my expression calm and composed, watching Rebecca's final triumphant performance unfold below. Halfway through the gala, the host took the stage to introduce the highly anticipated engagement announcement. The crowd erupted into warm applause, cameras flashing brightly, every eye fixed on Rebecca and David. Rebecca's face lit up with pure, unbridled joy, believing her lifelong dream was finally coming. David stepped forward to the microphone, standing center stage under every spotlight, all eyes and cameras locked on him. The crowd fell silent, waiting for his romantic announcement. Rebecca stood beside him, smiling brightly, ready to accept her perfect. But David did not announce their engagement. Instead, he lifted a tablet connected to the venue's giant overhead screens and spoke in a clear, steady voice that echoed across the entire ballroom. "Tonight I have no engagement announcement. I have a truth to expose." Before Rebecca could react, the giant screens flashed to life, displaying my compiled evidence in full view of every guest. The unedited staircase security footage, the 3 years of dated journal entries, the damning private text messages, and the full chronological timeline of Rebecca's years of manipulation and... The crowd erupted into shocked gasps and... Cameras flashed frantically, capturing every second of Rebecca's crumbling facade. Her perfect smile froze on her face, her skin turning deathly pale, her eyes widening in pure terror as her entire lie unraveled in front of the entire... Rebecca panicked instantly, grabbing the microphone and screaming frantically, "This is fake. It's all edited lies. She's manipulating everyone." But her desperate denial fell flat. The evidence was undeniable, unedited, overwhelming. Every guest could see the truth. David's voice was cold and unforgiving as he continued, exposing every last one of her. For 3 years, Rebecca Hale manipulated me, lied to my family, framed my fiancé, and destroyed an innocent woman's reputation for her own social gain. Every injury, every tear, every accusation against Sarah Marlowe was a... He turned to the trembling, devastated Rebecca, his gaze filled with... "You are not the kind. fragile person everyone believes you are. You are a liar, a manipulator, fraud. Rebecca broke down completely, sobbing and screaming, trying to run off stage before the crowd's judgmental stares. But every eye was fixed on her. Every camera capturing her meltdown. Every elite guest witnessing her total, irreversible ruin. Her perfect social reputation shattered into a million seconds. As chaos erupted across the gala floor, the system inside my head began glitching violently, its mechanical voice breaking apart into static and error messages. Plot structure failure, core romance route destroyed, novel loop collapsing, system constraints dissolving. I stood on the balcony, watching the entire toxic novel plot crumble beneath my feet. After months of silent suffering, endless manipulation, and unfair punishment, the truth was finally free. But as the system's hold weakened, I sensed a final, unresolved question hanging in the air. Now that I'd broken the plot, what would be in this world? The aftermath of the gala showdown was swift and irreversible. By midnight, every elite social media platform was flooded with footage of Rebecca's public collapse and the damning evidence of her years of manipulation. Her family's social standing crumbled instantly, their business partnerships severed overnight, their reputation destroyed completely in Atlanta's elite circles. Rebecca's perfect life of privilege, status, and admiration vanished in a single evening. She was no longer the beloved, fragile socialite. She was known forever as a chronic manipulator, a liar, and a schemer who'd spent years sabotaging an innocent woman for personal gain. She was forced to leave the city with her disgraced family, banned from all high society events, her reputation permanently beyond repair. Every lie she'd ever told came back to crush her completely. In the days following the gala, David worked tirelessly to repair the damage he'd caused. He issued public official statements clearing my name completely, apologizing for his years of blind bias and unfair condemnation. He confessed his mistakes to the entire Sterling family, taking full responsibility for enabling Rebecca's manipulation and destroying Sarah's reputation. He terminated our engagement formally, publicly, and without hesitation. No pressure, no obligation, no lingering ties. He came to me privately multiple times, begging for forgiveness, offering me financial compensation, social restoration, and even a second chance at a relationship if I wanted it. He admitted he'd grown to respect and admire my strength, my silence, my unyielding integrity in the face of endless injustice. But I refused every single one of his offers calmly and firmly. I did not want his forgiveness. I did not want his money. I did not want his love or his status. I did not want any part of the toxic novel romance that had destroyed the original Sarah's life. I had broken free of the plot's rules, escaped the victim's script, and I had no intention of stepping back into any romantic entanglement tied to this cruel story. Slowly, the system's hold over me dissolved completely. The mechanical voice in my head faded to silence after weeks of glitching. The strict rule of no speaking, no explaining, no talking back vanished entirely. I regained my full voice, my freedom of speech, my ability to defend myself and live freely without plot constraints controlling my every move. I stood in the now quiet Sterling Mansion guest seat, the place where I'd endured my darkest confinement, and spoke aloud for the first time in months, my voice steady and free. I am no longer a character in this novel. I'm free. The system did not warn me. It did not punish me. It did not respond at all. The novel's plot engine was officially dead. I was no longer bound by scripted fate, forced conflicts, or pre-written tragedy. I was fully authentically me, Sophie, not Sarah, not a victim, not a side character in someone else's story.